Marcus wasn't doing anything wild. No luxury watches, no private jet fantasies, no late-night casino runs. And yet, somehow, his money always felt tight. You know that feeling, right? You open your banking app, maybe while you're standing in line somewhere, maybe late at night when everything's quiet, and your stomach does that little drop. Not panic, just discomfort, because you thought there would be more there. Marcus kept telling himself what millions of Americans quietly tell themselves every month. I'm working hard. I'm not being reckless. So why does it still feel like I'm stuck? And honestly, and this is where I'll admit something about myself, my name is William, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human behavior, and the small daily habits that quietly decide whether someone keeps treading water financially or slowly starts pulling ahead. Because here's what I've noticed after watching this pattern over and over again. Most people don't stay broke because of one big financial disaster. They stay broke because of something small, something daily, something that feels completely harmless in the moment. And the wild part? There's one simple daily behavior that if you actually stick with it, makes it extremely hard to stay broke long term. Not overnight, not magically, but almost inevitably. So if you've ever felt like you're doing everything basically right, but your money still feels stuck, yeah, this might hit closer to home than you expect. The everyday money leak. Let me paint a normal day for Marcus. Nothing dramatic, just life. It's Wednesday morning. He's running a little late, not late, but the kind of late where everything feels slightly rushed. He swings by Walmart on the way to work, grabs a bottled coffee, maybe a snack. Nothing crazy. It was like $12. And if you're being honest, you've done something very similar. You told yourself, it's just $12, relax. Marcus said the exact same thing. Later that night, scrolling on his phone, sees a small Amazon deal. Nothing fancy, just something useful. Adds to cart, done. Individually, totally harmless. Emotionally, completely justified. Financially, quietly adding up. Real-world example. Marcus spends $12 at Walmart most weekdays. $12 times 30 days equals $360 per month. That's $4,320 per year without one big purchase. No drama, just drift. The habit that changes the direction. Now, here's where things start to shift. You might think the solution is some complicated budget spreadsheet, or cutting out every small joy, or becoming one of those extreme finance people who measure their toothpaste usage. No. Honestly, the habit that changes everything is way simpler. Daily money awareness. Yeah, I know, that sounds almost too basic. You might even be thinking right now, I check my account sometimes. Fair point. But there's a massive difference between checking occasionally when something feels off and intentionally looking every single day. Marcus used to check his balance emotionally. You know the move, that slightly nervous tap, that quiet little pause while the numbers load, almost like you're bracing yourself. But people who slowly stop feeling broke, they interact with their money on purpose, even when nothing feels wrong. And that small shift starts changing behavior almost immediately. What research quietly shows? This isn't just motivational talk. Behavioral research actually backs this up. There's a well-known behavioral principle called the Hawthorne effect. Basically, people change their behavior when they know they're being observed, even when the observer is themselves. Researchers at the University of Chicago have repeatedly found that simple monitoring increases consistency and improves decision-making. In real-life terms, when you look at your money daily, you naturally become more careful with it. Not forced, not stressed, just more aware. And here's another interesting data point. A report from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that households who frequently monitor their bank accounts are significantly less likely to incur overdraft fees. Less overdrafts, less surprise spending, less of that awful, wait, how did that happen? Marcus had been operating mostly on financial autopilot, and autopilot is expensive. The small shift that starts everything. One random Monday, Marcus did something different. Nothing dramatic, no big financial awakening. He just started checking his accounts every morning. Same time, quick glance, 30 seconds. At first, honestly, nothing changed. And this is where most people give up, because the results don't feel exciting. You might even be thinking, okay, but staring at my bank account isn't going to make me rich. Yeah, I know, but here's the thing most people miss. It changes the decisions that follow, quietly. Within about 3 weeks, Marcus noticed something subtle. He started hesitating before small purchases, not out of fear, just awareness. Another real example? Marcus sees his balance before lunch. He skips one $8 fast food stop. $8 times 250 workdays equals $2,000 saved in a year. No extreme budgeting, just friction. Why your brain actually needs this. Here's the human psychology part, and I promise to keep it real. Your brain is not built to manage invisible money well. It just isn't. There's fascinating research from Princeton University showing that when financial consequences feel distant or abstract, people consistently make more impulsive spending decisions. Translation? If your money feels blurry, your spending gets sloppy. If your money feels visible and present, your behavior tightens up automatically. This is why people who rarely check their accounts often feel like money just disappears, because psychologically, it kind of does. Your brain prioritizes what it sees often. Out of sight equals out of control. Marcus wasn't careless. He was just financially disconnected most days. And honestly, most Americans are. The daily system that makes staying broke hard. All right, let's slow this down and make it real between you and me for a second. Because you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this sounds nice, but what am I actually supposed to do tomorrow morning? Fair question. And honestly, this is where most people overcomplicate something that is supposed to be almost boringly simple. You don't need a new app. You don't need a color-coded spreadsheet. You don't need to suddenly become that hyper-disciplined finance person on TikTok. You just need a daily interruption of autopilot. That's it. So here's what this looks like. And imagine I'm literally sitting next to you walking through it. Step 1. You open your banking app once per day. Not when you're stressed, not when something feels wrong, just once per day on purpose. Morning works best for most people, by the way. Your brain is calmer, less emotional, less reactive. And no, you're not judging yourself here. You're just looking. You might even say out loud, half joking, all right, what did past me do yesterday? Because let's be honest, sometimes past you was a little too relaxed with the debit card. Step 2. You quickly notice yesterday's spending. Not analyze, not spiral, just notice. Oh, okay, that's where that went. You'd be shocked how powerful simple noticing is. Then comes the tiny move that quietly changes behavior. Step 3. Before your first non-essential purchase of the day, just pause. 5 seconds. That's it. You're not saying no automatically. You're not banning yourself from living your life. You're just creating a small moment where your brain goes, do I actually want this, or am I just on autopilot again? Because here's the thing most people miss. Most overspending doesn't come from big emotional splurges. It comes from fast, unconscious yeses. Marcus didn't suddenly become perfect when he started this. He still grabbed coffee some mornings, still ordered takeout on busy nights, still had normal human moments where convenience won. But the mindless yeses, those started dropping. And that's where the real money was quietly leaking. The compound effect most people underestimate. Now, this is the part where I want to be very honest with you. This habit, at the beginning, it feels almost underwhelming. You might try it for a week and think, okay, cool, but nothing magical is happening. Yeah, I know, because we've all been trained to expect big, dramatic financial breakthroughs, big cuts, big investments, big sacrifices.
But money in real life usually moves because of small, repeated behavior shifts. And I want you to imagine something with me for a second. Imagine two versions of you. Same income, same job, same life. But one version of you pauses before small spending most days, and the other one just keeps flowing through autopilot like usual. At first, you wouldn't see any difference. Month 1, basically identical. Month 3 still looks normal. But give it a year, now the gap starts whispering. Give it 5 years, now the gap starts talking. This is exactly why research from Fidelity Investments found something really interesting. They looked at long-term savers and found that consistent small behavioral improvements, even modest daily awareness, could create differences of tens of thousands of dollars over a decade. Not because people became extreme, because they became slightly more intentional, slightly more often. And you might be thinking right now, okay, but my income isn't that high. Fair point, but here's the thing. This habit doesn't work because of how much you make. It works because of how often you interrupt unconscious spending. Marcus didn't suddenly start earning more. Nothing dramatic changed in his paycheck. What changed was friction, tiny daily friction, and friction over time is surprisingly powerful. Why most people still won't do this? Now, let me say the quiet part out loud, just you and me. Most people watching this still won't do this consistently. Not because it's complicated, not because it takes too long, because it creates small moments of discomfort. Yeah, I know, that sounds dramatic, but think about it. When you check your money daily, you remove the comforting blur. You remove the ability to say, it's probably fine. And your brain, just like mine, by the way, loves comfortable blur. Marcus almost quit in week 2. I'm serious. He literally thought, this is pointless. Nothing big is changing. And honestly, in week 2, nothing big was changing. That's the trap. Because the early phase of this habit is quiet, subtle, almost boring. But under the surface, something important is happening. Your awareness is sharpening. Your pause muscle is getting stronger. Your autopilot is slowly losing control. Marcus didn't notice it day to day, but about 6 weeks in, something interesting happened. He opened his banking app one morning, and for the first time in a long time, the number wasn't quietly sliding backward. It wasn't exploding upward either, let's keep it real, but the constant backward drift, it had slowed, then softened, then gradually started reversing. And if you're sitting there thinking, okay, but will this really make that big of a difference for me? Fair question. I can't promise overnight transformation. Nobody honest can. But I can tell you this with a straight face. When you consistently see your money, when you consistently pause, when you consistently interrupt autopilot, it becomes very, very hard to keep leaking money at the same unconscious rate. Not impossible to spend, not impossible to make mistakes, just increasingly difficult to stay financially stuck in the exact same pattern. And honestly, for most people, that's the quiet turning point they never saw coming.
So if there's one thing I hope sticks with you after this conversation, it's this. Staying broke usually isn't about one catastrophic mistake. It's about daily unconscious drift. And the habit that quietly fights that drift is simple daily awareness. Not obsessive tracking, not financial perfection, just looking consistently, calmly, on purpose. Because once you truly see your money every day, you start making slightly different decisions, and those slightly different decisions stack in ways that become very hard to ignore. So no, this won't make you rich overnight. But if you actually do it, day after day, it becomes surprisingly difficult to stay financially stuck in the exact same place. And hey, if you're sitting there right now thinking, yeah, I should probably start doing that, that quiet little thought, yeah, that's usually exactly where the shift begins.